Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. And Amy, do you want to know what $90 million in Fortune 500 indulgences purchases?
Sure.
All right. It purchases these 7 newly conceived and published demands of Black Lives Matter,
Oh, that's right.
the Marxist organization, Black Lives Matter. I'm not saying that. Alicia Garza and Patrisse Cullors are saying that, the co-founders. Very Trump-oriented, the 7. Convict and ban Trump from future political office. Also, permanently ban Trump from all digital media platforms.
Well, Facebook is deciding today whether or not he could come back in.
You know, why give up a whipping boy that serves you so well,
Right.
right? I suppose that's their perspective.
They wanted him gone, but they won't leave him alone.
Expel Republican members of Congress who attempted to overturn the election and incited a white supremacist attack.
Oh, God.
So that would be, Josh Hawley,
Josh
Ted
Hawley,
Cruz,
Ted
they got to
Cruz.
go. Launch a full investigation into the ties between white supremacy and the Capitol Police, law enforcement, and the military. Defund police.
Of course.
And also defund police more. Pass the Breathe Act, and listen to this statement underneath their proposal to pass the Breathe Act, their rationale. The police were born out of slave patrols. We cannot reform an institution built on white supremacy. And then, add your name to the list, and then they'll send that over to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and Cori Bush will author up some legislation, and we'll continue to prosecute the case and provide no quarter to anybody who would seek to compromise with these white supremacists, meaning people who disagree with us. And it calls to mind a passage from Dan Henninger's most recent piece in the Wall Street Journal. Why should the left, whether in the streets, in the corporate boardrooms, or at the highest levels of American government, abandon a strategy of refusing to negotiate? It's working. Everywhere today, the opposition is being overrun or intimidated into silence. Right. So why not just keep issuing ever nuanced lists of demands and then just say, do it? That's we want this done, and we will accept nothing other than full compliance with our demands. Why shouldn't they take that posture? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the aforesaid Dan Henninger, deputy editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. Dan, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
With you, Dan.
And the Black Lives Matter folks and others of their ideological ilk seem to get this very well, and Joe Biden seems to be serving as they anticipated he would serve. So why would this paradigm change over the next 2 or 4 years?
Yeah, I don't see it changing very much at all. I mean, as we know, the Democratic left, the progressives, have gained control of the Democratic Party and indeed the White House. And it is an article of faith among the left that Barack Obama, when he became president, tried to negotiate with Republicans over his $800 billion stimulus bill and then the Affordable Care Act. And he got very little. And the left believes that Obama made a huge strategic mistake by negotiating with the Republicans. They don't do negotiations. When you think about it, this is a hallmark of the left, goes back a long time, Dan. I recall that back in the 1960s, you had student strikes, protests, and they created something they called the non-negotiable demand back in the 1960s when they were occupying the offices of university presidents. And that's when this negotiating tactic began. You don't negotiate with the other side. You just beat them down until they run up the white flag and give in. And if you look over the last year, starting with the post-George Floyd protests across America, many of which turned violent, we had this explosion of woke politics, much of it joined by institutional leaders, whether arts institutions, CEOs, all kind of saluting the Black Lives Matter woke agenda. We're winning. And fast forward to this year, President Biden puts up this COVID stimulus relief bill, and 12 or 10, I guess it was, Republican senators go up to the White House and negotiate with them and got nothing. He basically showed them the door. Jen Psaki saying he's always willing to hear people, but she didn't say he's willing to negotiate. And I think that's the strategy that Joe Biden, this lifelong member of the U.S. Senate, has adopted. He doesn't do real deals with the opposition. And although there are some who think they're going to get some on that infrastructure bill, I think Joe Biden is pretty much truly aligned with the progressive left now and pushing back against the idea of doing deals. He wants to just force his opposition to come to terms with his proposals.
Meanwhile, the tab for all these plans are going to hit $6 trillion. And I mean, I don't know about you, but price of gas is going up where we live, and groceries are the prices of groceries, everything, you name it, is skyrocketing right now.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, and I raised the question at the end of my column of whether Joe Biden may not want to negotiate with Senate Republicans, but he's going to have to negotiate all this with the American people, the voters, come next year's midterm elections. And what are they thinking about all this? And I think many of them are reacting exactly as you described. I mean, he has just, with his American Families Act, proposed at least four new major entitlements: pre-K education, paid leave, child care provided by the federal government, 2 free years of community college. Then he says this will all be paid for by raising the corporate tax and taxing the 1%. I mean, how naive does he think the American people are to believe that you're going to support all of these entitlements at a time when most Americans do understand that Medicare and the Social Security Trust Fund are running out of money? So I think it's a very, very good question whether this strategy is going to survive through next year's elections. And I should point out that I just read this morning, the Republicans have expanded their target list for House seats to 56 races. I mean, they feel they've really got an opportunity now to take back the House and produce a major majority in November of next year. And I think that's a quite plausible strategy given what the Biden White House has been doing.
Well, given the landscape you're describing, and even though he got, I think, deserved high marks for his response to Joe Biden's non-State of the Union speech last week, does Senator Tim Scott and do Republicans make a mistake when they trot out the same sort of canned lines you hear from Joe Biden about bipartisanship and we're willing to talk, we're willing to be bipartisan, we want to reach compromise? Not saying we want to be strident, of course, but rather by saying understand what he's doing, and we have an alternative vision for where to take this country. I mean, the things he's doing are problematic in these ways, and this is the path that we want to chart. And, the American people, you're going to have to make a choice here, framing the choice rather than trying to sort of middle the issue by using his same rhetoric, knowing that you're going to be at the same impasse.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. They are not, I mean, I agree, yes, they cannot simply be recalcitrant and walk away from the table. I think the Republicans do have to show that they are willing to sit down and perform politics with the White House. On the other hand, it is crucially important that you're suggesting that they distinguish themselves with a set of principles that are identifiably conservative or Republican. And in a way, the Biden White House has handed them this opportunity with this extraordinary American Families Act, which is indeed a cradle-to-grave proposition. Democrats have elevated something they've wanted to do for a very long time, and that is to simply provide benign paternalism to the American people from the time they're born to the time they retire. And if it's basically a kind of alternative vision of the American dream. I mean, people think this is a land of opportunity, it's a land of striving, that you can get ahead on your own efforts. And the Democrats are essentially arguing that because of the nature of the modern economy, we have to give up, throw in the towel, let the government take care of us. It seems to me there's an opportunity in there for Republican candidates to make a very strong argument on behalf of the idea of America that I believe most Americans feel is the reason they are in this country.
I want to get your reaction to the news out today that New York, New Jersey, Connecticut looking to relax, rescind most of their COVID regulations as of May 19th. We've got a press conference in Illinois today with sort of a reopen Chicago, reopen Illinois. Of course, it's
Yep,
the top
McCormick Place.
the
and
top
everything.
line belies the speed at which the reopening is occurring, of course. But the posture of the Biden administration vis-a-vis what's happening at the state level, where even the most ardent lockdown enthusiasts feel the need to loosen their grip, and yet Joe Biden and Jen Psaki are still clinging to their July 4th barbecue with a few family members threshold.
Yeah, I think that certainly the dam is breaking on that question of whether it's time to loosen up or not. You can feel it. I'm up here in New York City, and people have been loyally wearing their masks, but you can see maybe 25-30% of the people out on the street no longer are. They just can't take it anymore. And I do think that the White House is getting itself off on the wrong side of this issue, especially with that CDC of theirs putting out directives and guidances that no one can make sense of or that change from one day to the next. No one's going to go along with that, Dan. They're just not going to buy it anymore. And if you have even New Jersey and New York under Andrew Cuomo deciding they're going to finally open their states, I think they've been forced to. I mean, these states are suffering. New York City is in a bad way. There's no question about it. And there has been an out-migration of residents from New York and New Jersey in the past year. And those states that more or less remained open, like Florida and Texas, are gaining people who've been moving down there to get away from what happened up here. And so the northern states, Illinois, including Illinois, Michigan, I think really put themselves at a tipping point, and they do understand now that they've got to open up and allow a return to normalcy, or they're really going to lose their states if they don't do that.
And what do you make of President Biden? I mean, he's still wearing a mask even though he's vaccinated, and the CDC new guidelines say you don't have to wear one outside, even if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. Yet he still persists on wearing one.
Yeah, and the Democrats, the liberals, are just so attached to the idea of that mask being on one's face. And I do think it's a political miscalculation at this point. People have been wearing those masks for a year and doing so, at least in the North, very loyally. It's hard to function with a mask. It's hard to talk to people if you're standing in front of them. And they've just worn out their welcome. And if the president, the White House, Jen Psaki, or the CDC would give some clear guidelines, yes, if you're in a crowded room or something, maybe for a while you want to keep wearing a mask. But the idea that when the president stands up there by himself with hardly anybody around him has to continue wearing that mask, I think it's just striking a lot of Americans as the wrong message at this point in time.
He is, he is Dan Henninger, deputy editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. Do check out his most recent piece, Joe Biden's Art of the Non-Deal. Dan, thanks as always. Appreciate your time.
Great to talk to you guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Attention homeowners. Are you looking for cash at a lower interest rate? Tired of paying high interest rates on credit cards? With the Figure Home Equity Line, you can use your equity to help you start saving. Rates as low as just 2.88% APR. Get approval in minutes and funding in as few as 5 days. Apply at Figure.com and see if a home equity line is right for you. Figure out your finances at Figure.com. Equal Opportunity Lender. NMLS 1717824. Terms and conditions apply. Call 1-888-819-6388 for details about credit costs and terms.
Need life insurance but have diabetes, high blood pressure, or on anxiety meds? If you're a 50-year-old male, even porky, or with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of life insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. For affordable term life insurance, call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-555-1509. 800-555-1509 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. 800-555-1509.
All right. For years, you've heard the familiar name of Turnkey IT. They've told their story about successfully providing IT solutions for hundreds of Chicagoland businesses. many of which are also supporters of AM 560. We like that. But now Turnkey turns a new chapter in their business, Turnkey Consulting. Turnkey Consulting came out of the need for so many small businesses